We were looking at how do we reshape in Stata. We started off with the difference between long and wide data sets, and now we want to look at how do we actually reshape. Before that, let's see what do we mean by reshape? Now, reshape is like when you partially transpose your data set. So if you have a long data set, you want to convert it into a wide data set, or you have a wide data set, you want to convert it into a long data set. So the conversion between long and wide data sets is what reshape is. So you can think about it as wanting to partially transpose the data set. Now, whenever we want to reshape in Stata, the command will require you to specify three arguments. The first is going to we need to specify what the I variable is, what the J variable is, and what the reshape variable is. Now the definitions will be different depending upon are we going from long to wide to long. So there isn't a single definition for it. You will have a different definition for each of these variables depending upon is the reshape from long to wide or wide to long. So let's see first what each of these arguments would be under reshape from long to wide. We know now what a long data set is. In a long data set, like the one that we have over here, subjects repeated responses appears subjects sorry the long data set is one for which a subject's different observations are stacked on top of each other, so we can have multiple rows for each subject. In this case, the main subject we're looking at is country. So we can see for each country the women ministerial positions data is presented for different years in different rows, right? The observations are stacked on top of each other. For each observation we have a separate row, right? So we know this is a long data set because it allows for multiple rows for each subject. If I wanted to now convert it into a wide data set, so wide data set would be where the subject any subject's different observations we know are arranged in a wide manner, which means that there's just one row for each subject, right? All of his observations are in just one row. If this was in a wide form, then you just have one row for Afghanistan, one row for the other country, one row for the other country, and so on, right? All of Afghanistan's, for example, observations would be in a single row. And how would that be? And that would be because you would have columns like this then. Woman ministerial position underscore 1990 would be one column. Woman ministerial position underscore 2000 would be one column. Then women ministerial position underscore 2006 would be another column. So that is how it would be then, right? So you would have like a column for each year of women ministerial position underscore year, right? Because in that way, then all its observations will be organized in a wide way. You just have one subject per one row per subject. So the key thing to first remember is when you're going from long to wide, what you're trying to do is in long, you can have multiple rows for each subject. A subject's different observations are stacked on top of each other in separate rows, right? Like if you have multiple rows for Afghanistan, right? Each observation is in a separate row. When we want to go to wide, what we essentially want to do is we want to make sure that there's just a single row for Afghanistan. All of its observations are arranged in one row, right? And for that, obviously, we would create multiple columns. So that is what we mean when we want to go from long to wide. Now, what we want to now the three. Let's see what the three main arguments are in such a reshape. Now, the I variable, whenever we're going from long to wide, will be the variable or variables, which will be the unique identifier in the dataset after it is reshaped. So the key is I will be whatever the unique identifier will be in the reshaped dataset. We're not looking at the unique identifier in the current dataset, but in the dataset after it has been reshaped. So after we reshape it, and for this, obviously, we need to have a picture of what a dataset would look like once it has been reshaped. And here we know how will this dataset look like. Okay, how will this dataset look like once we have reshaped it? We know, okay, in that case we would have, for example, the column country, and then we would have obviously a column for women ministerial position 1990, women ministerial position 2000, women ministerial position 2006, women ministerial position 2007. Like for each country now we would just have a single row, right? Like for each country in this column, right? You'll have one row for Afghanistan, one for the next country, and one for the next country. So once we reshape it into wide form, we're just allowing for one row for each subject. So essentially the unique identifier will be Afghanistan in that case, right? So let's just wait a second to continue from where we just left off, right? So we were saying that if we reshape this, then the data would look like this, right? Where, for example, now for each country, you would have just one row, right? Like one row for Afghanistan, Africa, Eastern and Southern, and then whatever next country we have, right? And then you would have these columns, right? Women ministerial position 1990, 2000, 2021. So keeping in mind how the data will looks like after you have reshaped would make it a lot easier to identify what I, J, and the reshape variable are, right? So this is how we would go from long to wide. Now we can easily identify what I is. Now I is the variable which will be the unique identifier in the data set after it has been reshaped. So after reshaping this, we can see the unique identifier is going to be country, because the whole point of going from long to wide is that we just want one row per subject. So whichever values we have in the country column are not going to repeat, because we're going to make sure when we're going from long to wide, it's just one row per subject. So I variable in this case is going to be basically country, right? Because that will be the unique identifier in the data set after it's reshaped. Now the J variable is the variables who we want to attach, whose values we want to attach to the reshape variable, right? So let's first look at what the reshape variable is, and then we'll get a clear picture of what J and reshape variable should be. Now, reshape variable is the variable we want to split into multiple variables depending upon the values or categories in the J variable, right? So the J variable is one whose values we attach to the reshape variable. Reshape variable is the one that we want to split into multiple variables. Now, if you have an idea of what you mean when we're going from long to wide, it will be very easy to figure it out, right? So, I is the country. Now over here we can see the variable that we want to split into multiple variables is woman ministerial position. That's a reshape variable, right? We want to create multiple variables for this based upon the values in the time variable, right? Because you want the woman ministerial positions in 1990, in 2000, 2006, 2007, and so on. So like you can see over here, okay, from here we can see okay, the I variable would be country. The reshape variable is woman ministerial position, for which we want to split into multiple variables based upon the values in the time variable. So a J variable is time. What we essentially do is whichever values we have in the J variable, which in this case is time, we essentially we basically attach them to the name of the reshape variable, right, to create new variables, right? So what we're doing is these values that are in the J variable, they're attached to the name of the reshape variable. We're not changing the values of the reshape variable. We're attaching the values in the J variable to the name of reshape variable, like this, right? Over here, like we've added 1990 to it. Then we've added 2000 over here. Then we've added 2021 here. So this is what we want to do. Whatever values we have in our J variable, we're going to attach them to the name of the reshape variable of our reshape variable so that we can create new variables from this, right? So we will create a variable for each unique value in the J variable, where the name of each new variable will be the original name of the reshape variable. Like over here, we still have women ministerial positions, and but the value in the J variable will be attached in the end, like, and we'll do this for each value of the value for each J value, right? And as many obviously unique categories we have in J variable, that many variables will the reshape variable be split into, right? So just to summarize, we know the I variable in this case is country, because that is what you want to be the unique identifier in the data set after it's reshaped. So after it's reshaped is the key here. Now, in this case, what we essentially want to do is we want to split woman ministerial position into different variables depending upon the values in the time variable. So our reshape variable is woman ministerial position, which we want to split into multiple variables based upon the values in a J variable. And the J variable in this case is time. And the J variable is such that the values inside it are attached to the name of the reshape variable so that we can create new variables from this, right? Where the name of each new variable we can see is the name of the original variable plus the J value attached to it, right? So we're just attaching these values in it to the name of reshape variable to create new variables, right? So that now we have a variable for women ministerial position 1990, then 2000, and then 2006, and so on. This is how we go from long to wide, and we'll look at the code in the next part.